and welcome to the PR Pace Podcast, a podcast bringing you media and PR industry news each and every week. I'm your host, Annie Pace Scranton, also the proud founder and CEO of Pace Public Relations, which is a media relations agency I started nearly 13 years ago after working for almost a decade as a print journalist and TV news producer. This week, I'm thrilled that we have such a great show lined up for you. Our first guest today is Daniella Macri, co-founder of The Virtue Project. The Virtue Project works with leaders to create meaningful social impact programs that connect their company's purpose. We had the pleasure of working together to help promote their client, Ready to Succeed, which is a nonprofit that helps get foster kids into college and supports them while they're there. It's such a fantastic initiative. Daniella, welcome to the PR Pace Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, we appreciate it. I know you're busy doing super important work at the Virtue Project, but first I just want to give a shout out to Shannon Delott, who is our mutual connection. And Shannon and I go way back. We worked together like 10 years ago on a few clients and managed to stay in touch all these years. And I was just thinking about it, how in all industries, relationships, I think, are one of, if not the most critical portion in the equation of success. But I was wondering kind of how you feel about the power of relationships, because you've had such an interesting career path and worked at, a few different places, and just wondering how you sort of view the power of relationships in the context of PR and marketing.
Well, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more, and definitely love the shout out to Shannon. Together, relationships have formed the cornerstone of our work for the Virtue Project. And I think what's led us here, I am so honored and lucky to count so many wonderful professionals and experts within our network, and just friends and supporters that have been with us throughout our respective careers. And then when we came together with the Virtue Project. And I always think back to my time way back when at Coca-Cola, where I worked for 8 years and launched Vitamin Water and Smart Water here in Canada. And relationship marketing or influencer marketing hadn't really been defined in the way we know it today, but that's really what powered the brand's launch back in 2008. And I think all of those same principles of just honest, sort of transparent and sort of mutually beneficial relationships is what's really propelled us forward.
And first of all, Coca-Cola, wow. I mean, that's, you can't really get too much bigger, I guess, of a brand to work at. And now years later, you started your own company, right? Mm-hmm. And so what are what are the principles or like the core tenets that you took from working at a super large, well-known public company that you feel like served you well as you went on to launch and start the Virtue Project?
Great question. So much. Carrying on from the previous note around relationships, those really, how you worked with your team, with your suppliers, vendors, agency partners, that really is what helped get the job done and made our time there, my time there, wonderful. And I really cherish those relationships from then to now, and have grown with everybody as they've kind of moved through their respective careers. And so when you go out, and start something new, you have that supportive community that kind of is rooting for you all the way. And I think that is incredibly important to maintain. What I also learned and took from there is really the rigor around strategy and making sure that we're approaching the big picture of an opportunity, the big picture of what we're trying to do, and the love of brands. I mean, understanding how brands are built and looking for ways for that brands can really be serving and supporting their end user. And that is those are universal lessons and universal principles that help when you're building your own offering. And I really admire and appreciate the lessons I learned while I was there and applied them to our own business.
So I've been thinking about this a lot lately because at Pace, we've been on this journey for the past couple of years, really doing a lot of work around intentional growth. Part of what we learned along the way, working with our growth coach, Crystal, is the sort of like the power of our brand. So kind of like everything you just said. And it's so interesting because as a founder 13 years ago, I just started the company. Like I was just like, here's my business. I can get you on TV. This is what I do, et cetera, and did not give any real thought to the brand of Pace PR. And I wish I had started this so much sooner, because it's really been instrumental in our own growth. But why do you think and know from your experience that branding is so important? Like, why can't it just be like, here's our great product and that's it? Like what is it about fully forming a brand and that strategy that goes along with it that really fuels the success of various companies?
Yeah. And especially related to what we're focusing on now, people connect with brands through an understanding and an alignment with a brand's values, their purpose. And I always remember an early lesson early on around a brand isn't necessarily what you say it is, it's what other people say it is. And understanding how to create your brand and communicate your brand in a way that resonates with those who you're hoping to connect it with. The solutions you're trying to solve for people is the most powerful role, I think, of a brand. And now more than ever, it's crucial for brands to communicate their purpose and their sort of progress towards it. Especially Gen Z and millennials, everybody is purchasing based on or making decisions based on how they understand brands are benefiting society more than just their product or their offering. And that is how you can communicate that. That's how you sort of show the world who you are and why you exist.
What are some of the steps that a founder, a startup, even a young business, what are some of the steps that they can take to sort of like figure out their brand identity? I mean, I'm assuming there are consultants people can work with, but are there strategies that you would advise, or even strategies maybe that you implemented as you started Virtue Project, for yourself? I would imagine you'd have a lot of good insights from your past experience going into this one.
Oh, absolutely. And I can say, and I'm sure if there's other fellow entrepreneurs out there, and to you, of course, it's so much easier to often do this for other people, other brands, than it is when you start to turn it inwards and apply those same principles to your own work. But understanding your purpose, your why, is always the place to start. Why do you get up every day to go to work? Why did you decide to do this? Even if you didn't formalize it in the first place, understanding now when you look back, why did I start this beyond, just maybe needing a job, wanting to have your own company? What benefit is it serving others? And what are those values, those kind of guiding behavioral principles that will help you every day work towards that purpose? And doing a bit of business self-care, brand self-care is really important to connect with those key pillars of purpose, mission, vision, values. And from there, you start to have the building blocks of what your brand is. Why is it different than other brands out there, other services companies out there? What is the impact that you want to create in this world through your brand? Who are you trying to reach? And what are those, what are their tension points, their problems that they want to solve? And sort of articulating everything into a brand guidebook, a brand book, helps to inform and create a filter for all of the decision-making that you have to do with your brand. We love creating, your brand identity. What does it look like? What does it sound like? Who are you talking to? Once you realize, even if you had never done that in the beginning, when you sit down at any point to look at this, it helps to shape your brand and inform how you will make decisions, how you hire, what your packaging looks like, all of these different key components of what the brand should be. And consultants definitely help, but working with founders is so fun because nobody knows, believes, and cares about that brand more than that person or those people.
Mm-hmm.
And it often can be such a fun and invigorating exercise to take a half day, sit in a room together, go through a series of workshops and activities. And at the end of it, you have this book, this tangible document that says, this is who my brand is. And that's the starting point. It becomes a guide to everything else that you can do as a brand and how you grow.
Okay, so not to put you on the spot, but then how would you describe the brand of the Virtue Project? I gave a little bit of it in the intro, but, would love if you would be able to share with our listeners about the mission and the work that you're doing.
Absolutely. Both Shannon and I have come from a consumer marketing background, and we always knew that we and our expertise and our business acumen could be a force for good. And that's what really brought us together to create the Virtue Project, was understanding how we can apply our expertise to what we recognized was an urgent need for businesses to incorporate and be part of the solutions that we're faced with every day. And together, we knew that from a core values perspective, we were lifelong learners. We wanted to be good future ancestors. We work hard, we work a lot, and we wanted all of that to go towards something positive.
What do you mean good future ancestors? I've never heard that before, and I kind of love it.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. So we're both moms, and we looked at our children and thinking of the world that we're leaving them. How can they look back and say, my ancestors, us, really did something. They did something to help advance society forward, people, planet. And that was sort of our driving force.
Love it.
Yeah. And, it is what I see that's really binding people together in this sort of broader social impact, social purpose community. We recognize that nobody else is coming to save us. We have to be part of the solution. And because our background is in this sort of brand marketing space, we understand businesses, brands, we know what they care about when they need. And through the support of our growing network of different experts and nonprofit leaders and social impact specialists that we work with, we're able to sort of bridge the gap between what we know that these company leaders need on a day-to-day business to survive and thrive, which is what we want them to do, but how to do so in a way that's driven by purpose and that is creating some real impact throughout their sort of stakeholder communities, whether that's just their employees who are always sort of that first line of ambassadors and people you want to care about, to your end users, your clients, your customers, and even to your suppliers, your partners, your collaborators, whoever that might be that has an interest in the success of your brand. And it also helps that we keep things approachable, not preachy, because we're not here to judge. We're learning alongside everybody, and so that's helped keep the tone of our voice and the way we show up as a brand and as a company approachable, open-minded, ready to learn at all costs, knowing that sometimes it's okay to change your mind when you learn. I love hearing from all of the social impact educators we benefit from on a regular basis that when you know better, you do better. So the whole point of what we do is to learn and do better.
Amen. I love that. And we had the great pleasure of coming together for one of your clients, as I mentioned, Ready to Succeed, which really takes a vested interest in helping foster kids get into college. And through our partnership, we were able to get the story on Good Morning America. And so I would love to just hear how that impacted, the client and sort of what that experience was like.
I love this. And Ready to Succeed is such a special organization. They are instrumental in helping foster youth and first generation college students succeed in college and earn career track jobs within 6 months of graduating. And without their support, 3% of foster youth, only 3% of foster youth may graduate and complete their degree and earn a career track job. But with scholars that go through Ready to Succeed's Career Accelerator and Preparedness Program, 100% of their scholars graduate and go on to secure career track jobs.
That's amazing.
It's amazing. And one of their kind of milestone programs throughout the year is called Project Dorm Room. And it helps support these scholars get their room set up, get their dorm room. They do not have the benefit of, often families and networks that are there to move them in and stock their rooms. And they work with amazing collaborators to do that. And the impact of telling that story through Good Morning America drove donations and support for the organization in exponential amounts. They were absolutely thrilled with the results. It was one of the highlights and kind of key fundraising drivers of the year so that they can continue to support these scholars. And it is something that is done every year, and they are looking forward to doing it again. And the beautiful thing about working with folks like Ready to Succeed is seeing the power of storytelling, which, Annie, I'm going to tell you, this is what we do and this is why we do it. There is a real impact and results driven through strategic communications and PR. And nonprofits in particular, many of them, they're just out there trying to do the work, trying to support their community, and oftentimes don't have access to these types of communications efforts and experts. And it makes such a difference when they do.
It's so incredible.
So bravo to you and your team.
Well, I mean, we love all of our clients, but when there's a moment to help an organization like such as Ready to Succeed, it feels extra special good, because you really know and feel the impact. And I was just thinking about that, like how, it must be a good feeling for you every day to wake up and know that you're putting such good out into the world. And wondering, like, because I think a lot of younger people want to do that, and I'm wondering how, but I feel like it's important also to maybe get the corporate experience, like how you and I had, right? And sort of get some of that professional and corporate experience. And then it must have helped and allowed you when you're starting Virtue Project to really feel like, okay, I know what I'm doing here, I'm set up for success. So what would, do you have advice for sort of younger PR, marketing, comms professionals who might be listening, who think, I want to do something really impactful? Do you think they should just go for it right away? Or do you agree that having that sort of corporate background can be helpful in their careers?
That's such a great question. And I can share the benefits of my experience, but also where I recognize that different paths can also lead you there. Mm-hmm. When I began my career, I actually began it in PR agencies. And that was very intentional based on advice within my network, my community, which was you start an agency, you earn those hustle stripes, you learn a lot quickly. And I'm really grateful for that springboard in my career, because I did do just that. I gained experience across a variety of different categories. I worked with peers in communications and marketing that I could learn from, both senior and at my level. And that really supported and helped me succeed in that corporate environment, because I brought a sort of nonconformist and outside in approach that, in particular, the brands I was working on really benefited from. And what I've learned now is experience wherever you're getting your experience, maintaining those principles like we talked about at the start of the conversation around relationships and being strategic can apply to wherever you are. And as it relates to impact and sort of understanding how to become more involved, if you're in an agency and able to take on any pro bono type of work and work with nonprofits through that lens, you will gain an incredible amount of insight and learning about how they work and what they need in order to succeed. And there are now, because it's growing so much in this space of social impact, there are associations and institutions that you can be part of. In Canada, there's something called the Impact Relations Institute, which is really about communicators and strategists who pledge to abide by kind of a charter for responsible and ethical communications. So there always can be a connection to how can you be in your role, whatever it might be, and do it in a way that aligns with your values and learns from other folks. And there was a really amazing bit of insight that was shared by Romila Ratman, who heads social impact for Endeavor. And this was at one of our sort of TVP talks that we do, where we gathered folks together around sort of crucial conversations. And what she highlighted was that your impact and your positive work starts just in the operations. It starts in the day-to-day, making sure that you're looking at how to be more equitable and inclusive and in your day-to-day role. How are you reducing harm to other folks in what you do every day, and starting there. And I think that's something that we all have agency to do, regardless of the role that we're in.
I love that, and such good advice for any of the folks listening who are just kind of like starting out in their career. So what's next? What's coming up this year for Virtue Project? What are you guys working on? What are you excited about that's coming up soon?
Oh, it's a great year ahead. We're off to a pretty good start here in January. We're blessed to continue working with Ready to Succeed. We love partnering with them and helping to tell their story in their 7th year of operations, and they are just flying and growing in the best way. We're also working with Safe Space, which is a social impact media company, and they produce films and tell stories, as they say, that nobody else wants to tell, and really centers diverse creators and storytellers. We worked with them last year on a documentary called Battleground, that highlights how Roe v. Wade was overturned, a very chilling look into what happens when nobody's paying attention. And this year, we're looking forward to working with them on a film called The 50. And The 50 is a sort of character-driven documentary about 50 men who were sentenced to life in prison and how they became part of a rehabilitation program and turned them into counselors. And it is a powerful story about trauma and healing, and how even in the most dire circumstances, there's hope and a path forward for people. So we're looking forward to working with that film as well, and continuing our efforts in supporting and bridging for-profit organizations, companies, and brands with their social impact strategies. And often that means working with and pulling in our nonprofit partners as well. So we have a lot of good stuff on the go.
Oh my God. It sounds like it. Thank you so much for making the time to join us today and for sharing all of this great insights and knowledge. And for our listeners who want to connect with you or learn more about the Virtue Project, how can they reach out? Where can they go to learn more?
Oh, they can go to thevirtueproject.co, or you can find us on LinkedIn or Instagram, send through DMs. Can't wait to hear from you.
Daniella, thank you so much for joining the podcast today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Joining me now is Brittany Fox. Brittany is a lifestyle producer on the New York-based television program New York Living. Brittany, welcome to the PR Pace podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So it's so great that we're talking today because just this morning you booked and had on the show on New York Living our clients, Justin and Taylor Norris of the LIT Method, a fitness product standing for low impact training. Thank you so much. How did the segment go this morning?
It was so good. Honestly, their segment was so easy to put together. It was very straightforward. It was all about kind of getting in the gym with your gym bae and just doing couples workouts to, like really motivate each other and like avoid the arguments in the gym. And I think we all needed a little bit of that in the month of love. So they were great. They were fantastic.
Well, thank you so much. They had an awesome experience. And, I find that local news has a real power to it that, sometimes can be overlooked. How I know you've worked in local news and in various iterations over the years. What do you love about working in local?
I love it. So I really just love the fact of being able to meet all of the local people that come on our show. Actually, just recently, we had this young man. His name was Jemai, and he is a singing telegram, and he got to come on our show. And who knew that singing telegrams were still a thing, first of all, but getting to meet just a lot of the local people who have such amazing stories to share. And, a lot of time you don't really get to see that. You don't see that on, reality TV. It's all made up, and with local news, you really get to show people, there's so much more, especially in New York, so much more than just the crime and the rats and the subways that you just hear all the time. There's so much more and just so much beauty to this city. And we get to really dive into that. And that's my absolute favorite part.
So New York, obviously, number one local market. How many pitches would you say you get a day into your inbox?
It is probably a number that I can't even count to. I always feel so bad because I try to get through my emails, at least halfway through my inbox through each and every day. But my hands are not fast enough. My eyes can't read enough. And then, once you reply to one person, then they reply back and then their email goes back to the top and you're trying to, coordinate stuff. So I get hundreds, I think, of pitches a day. And that's just in my regular email. A lot of times I'll also have people texting me who might know me from other PR firms who, are recommended to me. And also through LinkedIn. LinkedIn has been a huge medium, I guess you could say, for people pitching to me on there as well. So I'd probably say in total at least 200 pitches a day. It's so many.
My God. How do you prefer to get pitched? Because you just mentioned several different email, text, social media. Do you have a preference, or what would you say would be your recommendation for a publicist if they don't know you, if they're just kind of cold pitching you?
Right. So I love when somebody will send me an email and maybe it's been like 2 days since you've heard from me, repitch me again, because then it'll pop back up to my top of my inbox. But in my email signature, I do have my cell phone number and my LinkedIn in there. And so I really do encourage people sometimes just to text me, and that sometimes will get a quicker response than just emailing me, because my email is just so packed. And at least if we can't do the pitch, I can just text you back really quick and say, hey, saw your pitch. So sorry, we can't do this one this time. Keep us in mind. And then I can save you in my phone for the next time, you pitch me or you want to just text me. And then that way I know. And it's so much easier sometimes with the text. But first email and then text me if you haven't heard from me in like 2 days.
That's good. The art of the follow-up is so important for the publicist. So tell us, for those who aren't familiar with New York Living, it airs on WPIX here in New York, but what is the show all about?
Oh my gosh. So we just started in June of 2022. So we're still fairly new, haven't even hit our 1 year yet. But the show runs from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and we're all about local. Of course, we love our celebrities and, very informative topics, but we love having our local New Yorkers, New Jerseyans. I don't know if that's how you say it. But we love all of our local stories and people who are just doing some incredible things in our city. And we love highlighting that kind of stuff.
So that's great. And how is the best, what would be your ideal pitch to get? Like, we try to always give some tips and feedbacks for publicists who are listening on, what do you look for when you get what would make you open up one of the 200 pitch emails that you get a day? Is it a great subject line? Is it referencing something that they saw on the show earlier? Like, what are some tips that you would recommend?
Yeah, definitely the first thing that will get me is a really standout subject line. And I love when pitches have links to any other interviews that they've done, especially if it's about the same topic that they're pitching us. It doesn't necessarily have to be, but I do love to be able to really quickly click on a link and watch the interview and say, ooh, think this person might have something really good for us. I love that about them, how excited they are, how bubbly they are on camera, how they get to their talking points quick, because we all know TV time, 5 minutes sounds like a long time, but in TV time, it goes by so fast. Oh my gosh. I think the other thing I personally look for is I want to be able to share with our viewers something that they just didn't know, or something that's going to make them go, oh my gosh, I learned something new from that segment. Like, for example, we had a segment on about the best days to go grocery shopping. And everybody was so shocked to find out that it was like Tuesdays or something like that. That was the best day. And that when you called to maybe ask a question for the grocery store, how you should ask for a customer representative instead of customer service. I mean, there's just like all these random tidbits that people just didn't know, and what's a really good takeaway for our viewers. So we don't want to just bore them with facts. We want to really surprise them with unique facts. So those are probably the top 3 things that I look for when I'm reading my pitches.
Wait, why is Tuesday the best day to go grocery shopping? Do you remember?
Oh my gosh.
I'm putting you on the spot now.
I think it's because there's less people in the stores, and I think the prices are also a little bit lower on Tuesdays, allegedly.
I mean, and I kind of knew as soon as I was asking that question, I'm like, oh, I bet you she doesn't remember, because you probably produced like 100 segments, like since that.
Oh my gosh.
What is, tell our listeners about what a day in the life is like for a local news producer, because it's kind of crazy.
Oh my goodness. So I get up every morning at 2:45 a.m.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that is the worst part of the day. It's just trying to motivate yourself to get up. And I'm one of those people who I really take time to pick out my clothes, and I put on my makeup and do my hair, because I'm very much a believer of when you look good, you feel good, you can do well in your segments, you can do well in the workday. So I have committed myself to doing that. So I get up at 2:45. I'm out of the door no later than 4 a.m. I go into work and I just start chugging away, especially my role. So I book segments, and I also stack our show, write teases, add any other kind of creative elements into our show. I pick music for our show. And since we are currently down our senior producer, it's like copy editing the show and making sure things are, spelled correctly, that there's no like mistakes in the show. So it's a lot to do. And our show goes on at 10. So you would think by the time I get to work around 4:35, that 5 hours is more than enough, but I am still plugging away at the last minute, trying to still finish stuff up and make sure it's absolutely perfect. So, and then I go in and booth the show for an hour. So I'm the one putting it on air with our director, calling any, shots or any full screens and things to come up. And then once we're done, we just go back and we do it all over again, going and following up with any clients that are coming on for the next day, booking people for other future dates. Talking about the show and things that need to be filled, things that we need to fix. So it's a busy day, and I usually don't leave the office until 1 or 2, kind of depending on what the day's looking like. Like yesterday, I had 3 segments to do for today. So it was a very, very long evening. I don't think I got done working until 8, trying to get everything done.
Oh my God. So what hours do you sleep?
Well, so I try, and I've been really, really good at it, trying to go to bed by 8:30 p.m. every single night. I don't care how, tempting TikTok might be or how much I might want to, scroll through Instagram. Mm-hmm. I make sure that my face is washed and that I am in the bed by 8:30. And I've been really, really, really good at it. So usually from 8:30 to 2:45, I am knocked out. So if you try to call me at that time, I'm so sorry. I will not answer.
Note to publicists, do not pick
right.
in the evenings.
Exactly.
I'm reading Ariana Huffington's book on sleep. And so I love that you prioritize getting a good night's sleep and having a good rhythm, because when you really start to think about it, it's like, what are we gaining from just like wasting time scrolling on TikTok? We're just screwing ourselves over at the end of the day.
Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. And TikTok is my biggest thing. And I get so caught up in it, and the time goes by, and I have to say, Brittany, 5 more minutes, and then 5 more minutes is one TikTok video. And I'm like, well, I have to watch one more, and it just never ends.
It's so sad. It's so sad. So we were chatting a little bit about like how producers obviously are behind the scenes, but you're sort of exploring putting yourself out there in a more sort of like public facing way, if you will. And, producers, I think, just have such an advantage when, they're thinking of other career paths or new opportunities that may be on the horizon. And you were talking about sort of getting involved in some voice acting work. So can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. So I actually moved from San Antonio, Texas in March of 2022. So I'm a brand new New Yorker. Well, probably not anymore. I'm almost about to hit my year. But in Texas, there wasn't a lot of opportunities to kind of go outside of producing. But now that I'm in New York, the sky is really the limit. I mean, and I'm not just saying this, I think I have just met so many amazing and talented people in this city who have just showed me, you can still work full time and do fun things on the side that are going to benefit you in the long run. And I've always wanted to do voice acting work. Specifically, I would love to voice act for some sort of cartoon for like Disney. That would be the best thing for me. But I'm just kind of exploring that still, kind of still getting my feet wet, trying to figure out how to record myself, doing, any stand-ups and things like that. So I'm still working on it, but definitely something I want to do in the future. So I'm putting myself out there. It's very hard, and there's a lot of things to learn and a lot of research, but that's what I want to do, as well as being a producer on the side.
Yeah. Well, producers actually can produce anything in their own lives. So I have absolutely no doubt that you will go ahead and make all your dreams come true. And how has the transition been from moving from Texas to New York?
It was amazing. When I was in Texas, I will say this, I was very unhappy with myself. I wasn't where I wanted to be, health-wise. I wasn't super fulfilled in my career. And I was also married in Texas, and I ended up getting a divorce before I was moving to New York. So that transition was really hard. It was, I was working still full time. My boss had taken 3 weeks off. And so there was a lot of extra work on my shoulders. Plus, I was, just getting this new job. And then, of course, like I said, the divorce started to happen. So it was a lot, but I still had to show up to work every single day and pretend like I was totally fine. And I came here and I moved in with 4 strangers that I had no idea who they were.
Oh my gosh.
And I know it was, that was very, very scary. I, definitely prayed a lot about that because I was very nervous, and it's co-ed. So I live with 2 boys and 2 girls. And
oh my God, what's that like?
I know there's so much. It's great. Honestly, I think I got very, very lucky. I mean, we have not had any problems in this apartment. Actually, that's a lie. There's been one problem child, but honestly, the other 4 have been great, or the other 3, I'm sorry, have been great. So it's totally fine. We actually share, I have the same birthday as one of them. But I mean, it's not like this scary thing. I think we all kind of look out for each other, regardless if we agree on things or not. But it's definitely an adjustment. I mean, I definitely am, in a bedroom by myself, and a lot of my roommates are in and out a lot, but it's been quite an experience. I've learned a lot about myself since, moving from being married and living with somebody to living with 4 other strangers and, trying to learn how to get along with them. It's like college all over again. So, but it's been great.
Well, I can feel your energy through the microphone, and it just sounds, I feel like New York is made for you. And we have appreciated so much getting to know you and working with you. And thank you for the great booking this morning. And if our listeners want to learn more and connect with you, how can they go about reaching out to you?
Yes, definitely add me on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me on my email for work, which is brittany.fox@pix11.com. I'm also on Instagram. My name is very long. It's What Does B Fox Say? But you can always add me anywhere, and I usually accept people. But LinkedIn is the best bet. I love connecting with new people and being able to chat about producer things and media things. So, yeah.
I'm going to start following you right now. Brittany, thank you so much for making time to be on the PR Pace podcast today.
Thank you so much for the invite. This was so much fun.
That's it for me today. I'm your host, Annie Pace Scranton, and I want to thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the PR Pace podcast.